it's just impossible to get a moment of peace in this culture now. So Quaker meeting offers that moment of peace, that moment of thought and reflection and deepening that it really isn't offered anywhere else.
So a meeting for worship can happen in somebody's living room, it can happen outdoors, it can happen at a meeting, it can happen in a meeting house, it can happen in a prison, it can happen anywhere. Part of meeting for worship is the settling down process, seeing who's in the room, noticing the people you care about. Maybe you only see them once a week. Sometimes they're people who are very involved in your lives, but there's this sense of joy at seeing people and greeting them and feeling part of a community.
The original intent of a meeting for worship was to just strip bare all the rites and rituals and things that become these forms that are empty. That really we're looking for the substance of connection with God, for that gathered meeting where we all feel God's presence and we're filled up with that.
In meeting for worship, there may come a sense of all of us being gathered by the Spirit into the deepest kind of unity that's really the underlying truth about who we are. We're not really separate, but on a deep spiritual level, we're part of one being. And sometimes in a Quaker meeting for worship, someone will have a sense that they're receiving a message from the Spirit, from God, that this message is not just for their own sort of education or illumination, but it's also something to be shared in the group.
We all have the ability to be ministers, that we all have the ability to be given this gift of a message and this burden of a message, right? So sitting in the silence, we wait and we listen and we ask.
I feel like this sense of this message coming to me. Is it just for me, or is it to speak out loud? Is it to speak out loud now? And so there's a whole process of discernment of what's going on. But sometimes then there's a sense of yes, this is not just for me, it's for the group. Often for me, when that happens, I feel my heart pounding. And I try to breathe a couple times just to make sure it's not fear, but really some movement of the Spirit. And when I do sense that the Spirit is asking me to speak, then I'll stand up and speak the message.
When I feel a leading during worship to ministry, I feel my heart start to go. Once I'm standing and know that it's going to come, all I need to do is get out of the way.
Different messages will move me different ways. I've been brought to tears many a time. I've felt as though this person got this message for me. How could it be otherwise?
It is a religion of personal commitment. It's not always easy. It's not always gratifying. It's not always fulfilling. Sometimes you're doing hard things.
I've experienced the searchlight in worship shining on my darkest places and a real sense of conviction about what I'm not doing right in my life. Those are always hard. Sometimes in worship, I'll be focusing on a particular thing, like a prayer, basically, and I'll get a sense about what direction this needs to go. If it's for my own life, if it's someone else's life, it's rare that I'll get messages for other people. But I've gotten really strong and clear senses of what needs to change about my health or my behavior in certain ways when I hold it in worship.
Ultimately, everyone wants to be at peace with their neighbor and full of love and being loved. That's the kingdom of heaven. That's a healthy society. But to get there, we have to, like I said, we have to sort through our baggage. We have to sort through the difficult stuff. So it's a call. Quakerism is a call to us to do that work, and that it's worth it.
Quakers don't have a creed. And that's been from the beginning, the sense that what God is, what spirit is, what reality is, what the eternal being is too big to be defined by a word. The experience is more important than trying to put a definition on it. And in fact, putting definitions or dogmas or creeds may actually hinder you from really fully experiencing that reality that undergirds everything.
This revolutionary idea that we each can be in direct relationship with the divine, and that there is a continual revelation of truth and beauty and a possibility of building the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven. And that belongs to everybody.
This light, this energy, this consciousness that's shining in everything and making everything alive. And people can experience that inwardly as a light that they might see, or as a kind of illumination of understanding. Many different ways that people would experience the light. And often you can see the light in that sense, sort of shining out of someone's face when they're joyful, when they're loving, when they're filled with the Spirit. You can say, oh, that person's shining, and you don't actually see a light, but you're aware that there's a light there.
Waiting for Worship is a tool for anybody who's interested in having that kind of direct relationship and living a life that is more than ego-driven, but led by Spirit.
Good morning. Good morning.